So did Jesus dry fast, water fast? What did he do those 40 days? We're going to talk about that in this video, so stay tuned right after this intro. What's up, my fasters? This is Dr. LeGrand, and welcome back to another video. Here we talk about on Mondays the history of fasting. And then of course on Thursdays we talk about the how-tos and the science behind fasting. So if you are new here, go ahead and consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any other types of fasting videos that we talk about here. And we also talk about other health tip videos on other random days. But specifically Monday and Thursday, it is all here about fasting and intermittent fasting. So go ahead. So what I'm going to go is answer a question that one of you guys had, and specifically, let me pull it up here. So Tatiana MCL asked the question, I would like to know what kind of fasting those spiritual leaders did, talking about Jesus Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad, what they did with whether it was dry fasting, water fasting, etc., and for how long did they fasted for. Well, Tatiana MCL, thanks for asking the question. Now today we're going to just talk about Jesus Christ and what he did with fasting, and then we're going to talk about Buddha and Muhammad later. So if you don't want to miss that, go ahead and make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell when I post those further down the future. But going into talking about the importance, and I'm going to kind of go in here and the kind of the scenes here, the importance of looking at these three figures, these three influential people in history, Buddha, Jesus Christ, and Muhammad, is that we need to look at the scripture text. That's really what we can only really look at is scripture text. So looking at the New Testament, going into looking at Jesus Christ. Now with him specifically, we know that he fasted for 40 days and for 40 nights out in the wilderness. What I do find very interesting with this is that even though he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, when he was tempted by the devil, and I've looked at all the different gospels, but looking specifically at Matthew chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, it says, and when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. What I do find interesting about this is it doesn't specify whether he did fast from water and food. Now, we know it's food because Satan did tempt him with bread. But why did he not tempt him with water? That's my question. It's an interesting observation. So I'm not here to dispute whether Jesus Christ did fast both water and also from food. He may or may not, but I just find it interesting that the scriptures do not specify. Now, if you find it somewhere else, go ahead and leave that in the comment section below. I am all ears to if you guys think it might be other way. In fact, we could start a conversation in the comment section below of whether you guys think yes he did and no he did not. I'm curious what you guys all think, whether he did or not. I'm kind of more assumption of maybe he only fasted away from food and not water. Hence, that's why he was able to go 40 days that long and be able to survive that long, especially out in the desert, which would be really hard without water for that long period of time. And I understand, yes, he was immortal, but what is also interesting, what I want to kind of point out, is we go to the Old Testament and we look at Moses. So going back to the slides here, is that Moses specifically, when he went up to Mount Sinai to receive the plates, he was in the presence of the Lord. And if we look at Exodus chapter 34, verse 28, it says, and he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. Now this is a very, very interesting picture, but I kind of liked it. It kind of looks like Moses is this big giant guy with beams coming out of his head and shooting down to people. I mean, I kind of find it pretty interesting picture, but I thought I'd use that. Kind of found a little humorous of that kind of picture, but you get the idea. So I do find it interesting that it does specify here in the Old Testament that he did fast from both water and food. Whereas in the New Testament, it doesn't specify whether Jesus Christ did or did not fast from water. But we do know food for sure, but the Old Testament did. Now, what is also interesting to kind of keep in mind, with Moses, he was in the presence of the Lord. And he even talks about that there was this veil. So whether that he was like transfigured or something in the presence of God, that his body was able to be capable of being away from food and water for that long period of time and still be fine. That's just something really interesting to observe. The other interesting thing to keep in mind also is why 40 days? Why? Why did both Moses and Jesus fast for 40 days? Why not 30? Why not 50 or 60? Why was it 40 days? Well, there is a lot of theories, and I'm not claimed to be a theologian, but I've just kind of heard some different disputes and kind of theories. Is that 40 days is because the people, Moses' people, were in the wilderness for 40 years. So for each year, he was supposed to fast for the sins of the people. So each day was considered a year for him to fast. So that's one theory. And then, of course, once he fasted those 40 days, he was given the tablets, the 10 Commandments, and brought them to the people. And then with Jesus Christ, why 40 days? Well, it might be because, it was supposed to be a resemblance of like what Moses did, and also for his new message. So not where there was the Moses' law, and then of course Jesus Christ's message, where it was new laws set in place. So those are maybe just kind of theory of some people think that why the 40 days, but that's just kind of an interesting observation on that. But also what is I find very fascinating is that these two people alone, they fasted beforehand before they got the enlightenment for their message to start their ministry. I mean, Moses, but to get the 10 Commandments, and then for Jesus Christ, before he started his ministry, he fasted for 40 days. Now, I've talked about this with fasting and the benefits of the brain, and I'll leave a card up here, I think, right here. The benefits of fasting when it comes to the brain is that we can receive more focus, and brain synapses increases in the brain, and be able to really help with the brain. That really this can be so significant, just looking at history of these two people fasting and receiving that. Now, as far as we know, as far as whether it was fasting with water or without water, Moses we do know. Jesus Christ, it isn't specified. But going further just a little bit, just looking at these two influential people alone, going back to the slides here, when we look at other Christian religions, so look at Catholics, for example, they practice what they call Lent. And this is looking at when Jesus fasted for 40 days, they also practice once a year. Now, they aren't fasting like Jesus did for 40 days and for 40 nights without food, but they're fasting from something else. So it could be, for example, fasting from social media for 40 days, or fasting from arguing, or even fasting from something as simple as, maybe not driving, or it could just be anything that you guys want to pick from fasting. But there's also other Christian religions that also implement fasting, and you see it in the scripture text all the time. Prayer and fasting, to be able to receive answers, to receive inspiration, to whatever it might be. And this is not supposed to be a religious dispute. I'm just here looking at observation and just showing the research, more fascinated about the fasting piece of why people practice it, especially in today, just talking about the Christian belief of why they fast, is that when people fast, they feel like they have a more spiritual gaining and understanding when they fast. And then, of course, it's practicing self-discipline for a lot of people to be able to receive further enlightenment in their life. Now, but the benefits of doing fasting in a science look at it is that we know that it benefits the brain itself. So if we kind of connect those two in together, is that we could see that fasting, when people did it way back in history and doing it today for religious reasons, there's also scientific benefits from it. So I really think this is very fascinating, looking into specifically these influential people in history. And we will talk about later about Muhammad and also Buddha in my future videos. So again, if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. And if you guys liked this video, go ahead and give us a big thumbs up. go ahead and share with your family and friends. And again, if you want to further learn more about fasting, we talk about all fasting things here and other health tip videos. So you can hit that subscribe bell button over here so you don't miss any future videos. And I will leave some other links here for you guys to check out some of the other playlists that we have on fasting. And until next time, love you guys. This is Dr. LeGrand signing out. Thanks. Bye.